In this video we're going to see once and for all which race in D&D 5th edition is the most popular. My name's Aaron, welcome to the DM's Playbook where we talk all things D&D with new videos every single Tuesday. So the poll that I created was pretty simple. It asked two very basic questions. Which class and which race were people playing as in their most recent campaign? Now honestly I expected a pretty low turnout, but to get over 2,000 submissions is just crazy, and what it does do is it gives us a good amount of data to pull from and to draw conclusions from. At this point I feel like it would only be polite to say thank you to the D&D Next subreddit and also to the Dungeons & Dragons UK Facebook group. Those were two great groups for me in terms of getting responses from them, and they really gave me a lot of data that I could analyse that helped make this video possible. So thank you guys for participating, and thank you to anybody who took part in the poll. In 5th place are the Dwarves with 118 votes. Dwarves are a staple in both classic fantasy and Dungeons & Dragons and can be found all the way back in the 1981 D&D basic rules book that I have here. However, they do actually date back in D&D lore to 1974, the original edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Almost 50 years later, they're as OG as it gets here in 5th position. They're a highly versatile race. They have resistance against poison damage, which is one of the most popular damage types that DMs will inflict against you. Fun fact, a massive 32% or almost 1/3 of Dwarven players play as one particular class in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Comment down below which class you think it is that's particularly popular amongst Dwarven players. Let's see how good your knowledge of D&D Dwarves actually is. Our next video will actually be a review of the D&D class results from this poll, so make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss that video. In 4th place are the TIEFLINGs with 119 votes. They beat the Dwarves by just 1 vote. Now the TIEFLINGs are a relatively new race in D&D. They first actually appeared in the mid-90s before becoming an official player character class in the early 2000s in 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. Their infernal heritage gives them a useful resistance to fire damage as well as access to a couple of spells, which has helped them make this race hugely popular in a relatively short space of time. They also open the door to some intense roleplay aspects, and they're a sure bet to remain popular going forward for the future. Sitting pretty in 3rd with 190 votes are the Half-Elves. Now their inherent charisma bonus does actually get buttered up with 2 additional single point ability score increases that can be applied to any of the other 5 primary abilities, you know, your dexterity, your strength, all of the rest of it. On top of that, Half-Elves also gain proficiency in any 2 skills of your choice, making Half-Elves highly adaptable depending on whatever character you want to play. Now, as we head into the top 2 most popular races in D&D, if you found this video at all interesting or insightful, take a second to bonk that like button, subscribe and dong that notification bell to make sure that you don't miss out on videos such as this one in future, which will include the full breakdown of the most popular classes in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. That's the next video we're going to do, but there's going to be so much more in future as well. Now in 2nd place on 218 votes are the Elves. They are another classic fantasy race. Their deep lore and their symbolism throughout the wider fantasy genre make them an ever-present race, but they're also genuinely useful to build from when it comes to D&D. Elves draw from a whole host of useful racial traits. Their proficiency in perception, which is possibly the most used skill check in the game in my opinion, their dexterity bonus, their ability to function on only 4 hours rest, and none of this is even mentioning the sub-races that elves have, which the sub-races themselves have some incredible little features. Despite all of that though, they weren't quite able to take the top spot. In fact, now that we're there, they weren't even close. Now blowing away the competition in 1st place with 401 votes is the human race. At first glance this might sound boring, but it actually makes perfect sense. D&D is a role-playing game, and creating a human character allows the players to fully connect and relate with their character. After all, it's a representation of the character that they know and love and hate more than any other in the world, an idealistic and flawed version of themselves. I know, that got pretty deep all of a sudden, but that's why I think the humans are so far ahead of every other race in D&D in terms of their popularity. If we take a step back though from the philosophical and psychological side of things, they're also a pretty solid race to play as. Their across the board ability score increases give an all round solid boost, although I wouldn't be surprised to hear that many people play as a variant human, which allows them to tap into a feat of their choice straight away from level 1, and that greatly influences the style of play with this character. There you have it then folks, that's the top 5 most popular D&D races in 5th edition. Subscribe to make sure you catch the upcoming video which will feature the most popular class in D&D 5th edition. Once again, bonk that like button to help the channel out. Thank you for watching. Look after yourself, guys.